Everyone knows you can use the eyedropper tool to select the color from a photo, but no one seems to tell you that by minimizing the Photoshop frame, then clicking inside the canvas and dragging outside of it, you can use the eyedropper tool to select colors from any other app or website. My name is Jesus Ramirez, and in this video I will reveal to you 10 genius Photoshop features you probably didn't know existed. And do me a favor, subscribe and hit the like button if you learned something new. Immediately after using most tools or applying filters and adjustments, you can fade the changes you apply by going into Edit and choosing Fade, or by pressing Ctrl-Shift-F. From the Fade window, you can reduce the opacity and in some cases change the blending mode of the last adjustment. This is great for retouching. For example, applying the spot healing brush tool over a wrinkle will remove it completely, but you can bring up the Fade window, then fade the adjustment down for a more realistic look. In most cases, you don't want to remove the wrinkles, instead you want to make them less noticeable. Keep in mind that the fade command is only available immediately after you apply your changes. If you do anything else in between, including saving your image, you won't be able to use it. Here's another feature similar to fade but even more genius. When using the Liquify filter, you might get a little heavy-handed and push pixels much further than you need to, and it just doesn't look realistic. Unfortunately, when you fade the results, you will see a ghosting effect between the original image and the edited version. This is not what you want. Instead, after you apply the Liquify adjustment, go into the Brush Reconstruct options and click on the Reconstruct button. Then reduce the intensity to something that looks good to your eye. The next feature is great for working with images with a lot of intricate detail. If you go into Window, Arrange, and choose New Window 4, and the name of your currently open document, Photoshop will open the same document in another window. This is not a duplicate document, it's exactly the same file. Now, you can go into Window, Arrange, and choose 2 up vertical to place the 2 windows side by side. Then you can zoom in one window to work on the details of your photo, while the second window shows the entire image. For example, in this case, I'll make a selection around the dog. Then I will use the generator fill to remove him. Notice that the fill shows up on both windows and they update simultaneously as I cycle through the variations. I can then continue to work on another part of the photo like her arm. I'll use the remove tool to remove her tattoo. Notice that as I paint away the tattoo, the adjustment reflects on both windows. You no longer have to zoom in or out to show how your detailed work affects the entire photo. I was never good in math class, but with Photoshop, I don't have to be. Photoshop can do the math for you in all input boxes. If someone tells you to make the canvas wider by 1/3, no problem. All you need to do is go into the canvas size dialog box and enter the equation times 4 divided by 3. As soon as you click away, Photoshop will do the math. Or if your font is too big, you can reduce it by half simply by dividing by 2. When you commit the changes, you can reposition the smaller text layer. Another great feature is the step and repeat. When you press Ctrl-T to apply a transformation, anything you do, whether it's distort, move, scale, or rotate, Photoshop will remember. For example, if you move a layer to the right, scale it up by 10%, rotate it 45 degrees, and commit the changes, Photoshop will keep all that in mind. Now you can press Ctrl-Shift-T to repeat all those steps on this layer or any other. Adding the Alt key to that keyboard combination will duplicate the current layer and apply the same transformation. This feature becomes even more powerful when you combine it with the previous one. If you want to evenly duplicate the star around this coin 15 times, you could simply press Ctrl-T to transform. Then move the reference point to the center. Now from the angle input box, divide 360 by 15, then apply the rotation. You can now press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-T 14 times to get 15 evenly spaced stars around the coin. And remember, as you're watching these tips, if you learn something new, hit the like button and subscribe. To make a document the same size as another open document, go to Image, Image Size. Now while the dialog box is open, go to Window, and at the very bottom of the menu, you will see all open documents. When you select any document, Photoshop will automatically fill in the values for that image. Then press OK to resize your image to match the other open document. But keep in mind that if the source image has a different aspect ratio, the result will be a stretched out photo. You can also use the crop tool for something similar. Go to the image whose dimensions you want to copy, Then, enable the crop tool. From the crop size drop-down menu, choose front image. Then go to the second document and you'll see the crop tool active with the dimensions of the first image. No matter how small you crop your image, the photo will always resize to match the front image. This little known feature will allow you to create written step-by-step tutorials automatically. As you probably already know, Photoshop is always tracking your edits. You can see what Photoshop is tracking by going into Window and choosing History. The History panel will show you all the edits you applied to your image. The problem is you can only see the generic basic steps without any detail. Even if this list is detailed enough for you, you can't export it as text. So if you want to track all the steps you've made, along with all the settings you used and keep it all as a separate text file, you can enable the history log. To do so, press Ctrl-K to bring up the Preferences window. From the History and Content Credentials tab, enable the History Log checkbox. Under the Save Log Items to, you can decide where to save the written steps. You can save the information in the metadata, which will save the text within the image itself. Text file will create a separate text file with all your adjustments. And of course, both will do both. For this example, we'll save it all in a text file. Then you can name your text file and decide where to save it on your computer. Now decide what you want to record. In this case, I'll choose detail to get as much information as possible. Now, apply any adjustment you like to your image. When you open the text file Photoshop created, you will see all the adjustments you made, including the settings you use. This feature is helpful if you decide to keep a record of your edits for a client, legal purposes, or simply to remind you of the changes you applied to a photo. Groups, by default, are used for organizational purposes, which is why the default blending mode is pass through. It allows all adjustment layers inside of it to pass through and affect all layers below. But with blending modes, you can make groups into a powerful compositioning tool. By changing the blending mode of a group from pass through to normal, Photoshop will treat the group as a single flat layer. This will allow you to create adjustment layers that only affect the contents inside of the group and nothing outside of it. You don't have to worry about creating layer masks, clipping masks, or anything else, giving you greater flexibility. I use this technique on every movie and TV poster I work on, including my last 3 recent projects with the Discovery Channel. And before we get to the last genius feature, I'd like to apologize to you for not posting during the last few months. I've been quite busy with my wedding. I got married on September 23rd, which has kept me quite busy as you can imagine, but I'm back creating more tutorials and a lot more is coming to the Photoshop training channel. The image processing machine found under File, Scripts, and Image Processor is a fabulous feature that will allow you to convert multiple images into a different file type. To do so, choose the folder containing the images you want to convert. I have a folder with several PSDs, although you can't see them here. I want to convert these into JPEGs. Then select the location to save the processed images and the destination format. You can choose between JPEG, PSD, or TIFF. I'll choose JPEG. The default settings work great, but you also have the option to resize or run an action on each image. Click on Run when you're ready, and Photoshop will automatically open all PSD images and save them as JPEG files. Now you can go to the folder where you saved the images and look for the JPEG folder containing all your new JPEG images.